Right. Welcome everybody. This is, should we call it, Curacel Insights, where we talk about the trends happening in health insurance, from fraud detection to claims processing. Whether we're talking about tools like using AI, using systems like ML, this is where you get to find it. Okay, so today we are looking into the role AI will be playing in health insurance, from data protection for your business and for your customer to how to use it to drive business growth, especially cutting down fraud activities in your system. So today we have Dr. Flash, the CTO of Curacel, with us, and David, one of our sales manager, who will be talking about all of this. Not to waste any of our time, I'll move the mic over to Dave. Yeah, over to you, Dave.
Okay, thank you very much, Samson. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to today's webinar. And today's webinar is going to be focused on fraud detection and prevention for health insurance. So I'm your host today, and my name is David Oji, just as Samson has said, and I'm an account executive in Curacel. I'm excited to let you all know that I'll be joined today by Dr. Flash. Is actually the Chief Technology Officer of Curacel, and he has over 10 years, of experience in building technological products for enterprises, health insurance companies, and etc. So I would just want to give Dr. Flash a few minutes to introduce himself before I continue. Dr. Flash?
Yeah, thanks for that, David. Even though you've kind of done justice already. Yes, the name is Dr. Flash. If you want to know the story behind that, you know where to find me. I would say that technology has been something that has made a major impact in lots of organizations over the past few decades. I'm a big fan of making sure these things happen in organizations that we come across. So yes, the decades of experience that we've amassed building tech, or that I have amassed building tech, I tend to translate them into solving problems for any of the organizations that come my way. And it's always an amazing satisfaction to see them progress better. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Flash. So in this webinar, Dr. Flash is going to be sharing, his insights and strategies for detecting and preventing fraud in healthcare insurance industry. He will also cover, topics like the latest AI-powered fraud detection technology and how it can help insurers spot fraudsters faster and more efficiently. And also, he'll be sharing some best practices for collaborating with other insurers to improve fraud detection capabilities. And lastly, he will be sharing strategies for training employees to recognize and report suspicious activities. So please sit tight and do not miss this opportunity to learn from the best in the industry. So let's get started. All right. So my first question for today for you, Dr. Flash, we just go this way. So what are the most common types of fraud in the health insurance industry?
That's a pretty nice one. It's actually very interesting if we dive into the health insurance industry, to be specific. But even before doing that, just an overview of how fraud tends to creep into insurance and why it tends to happen sometimes. You find that insurance involves getting money at the end of the day by virtue of making claims, right? And anytime money is involved, there is always an opportunity for exploit, which is why fraud can happen in the first place. What we find is that in different forms of insurance, in the different insurance verticals, the parties making the claims will try to find opportunities to breach the right process or loopholes in the process that might exist so that they can actually obtain more funds than they ought to have obtained if they did the right thing. And this happens in all the insurance verticals in one form or the other. So if we narrow down to the health insurance industry, it's usually very interesting here. And I'll say that one of the first common things that happens is ghost visits. So think about this. A healthcare provider files a claim to an health insurer for a valid and really a valid patient who actually belongs to the health insurer, but the person never came to visit that provider. So I call it a ghost visit because the person was never there. So it's a ghost, right?
Yeah.
But the health insurer doesn't know that, Mr. XYZ never showed up. The details are correct. His membership number is there, and they're like, oh, okay. And they pay the claim, right? That's a claim that shouldn't be paid for, but because the insurer is unaware that
Yeah.
Mr. XYZ never showed up to the healthcare provider, they pay that claim.
Yeah.
But that's a very simple but very common case that happens. Another that
Yeah.
happens very often, I like to call it service over billing. So you have in most health insurer stroke healthcare provider relationships, they have agreements on how they intend to price every service. So part of the relationship between a health insurer and a healthcare provider is the fact that since we're going to be bringing lots of our patients to you, lots of our members to you, we expect the prices of services to be slightly lower than what anyone else would get out there, just as a way of making the arrangement friendly for the insurance company. But what you find is that some healthcare providers would still increase the prices more than what was agreed between themselves and the insurer, which is why I call it overbilling. So a service that is meant to be $100 or $50 or 100 naira, depending on whatever currency is, they end up adding a few numbers to it, right? So when I
Yeah.
say overbilling, I
Yeah.
don't mean like 2x or 3x increments. I'm talking of like 0.1, 0.2x increments, right? Which are very difficult for the human eye to notice, but
Yeah.
the drops of water make an ocean, right? When these things
Sure.
accumulate, we're talking about 5 naira here, $1 here, accumulating over a large number of claims before you know it, the insurance is losing large amounts of money. Right? That's another case of fraud that happens pretty often. Think about someone who goes to the hospital. Now, this is not a ghost and relief. He was actually there, the valid person, and the doctor saw him, the hospital treated him, did everything, right? The normal process, nothing suspicious involved. They didn't increase the prices of anything by a single cent. But the patient went in for malaria, and yeah, he's expected to get malaria drugs. He's expected to get paracetamol and anti-malarial, maybe a few things to treat some pain or whatever. Then they decide to just sneak in another drug there that has nothing to do with malaria, with the hopes that the insurance company isn't going to notice it because they have lots of volumes. So they went in for malaria, and the that is meant to be for peptic ulcer or maybe for diabetes or just a totally unrelated drug that was never given to the patient. They sneak that in there. And because these things are coming in the volumes, the insurance company might not notice. And that is money that should have been kept going out as
Wow.
payment for a fraudulent claim.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. We know that various reports over the years has estimated the loss due to waste and fraud, waste, and abuse in health
Yeah.
insurance to the tunes of billions of dollars each year. Now,
Mm-hmm.
taking us back to the ghost enrolling you talked about there, I contrasting this with what's happening in the AI industry, where a lot is happening. Like someone could call you with, they can alter your friend's voice and call you on the phone, and you think it's your friend that's talking to you. They
Mm.
can alter a different image, and for instance, you have AI models right now. Like you will never believe that these people do not exist. In this instance, when that gives room for the ghost enrollee. But now, the ghost enrollee could be this AI. If this, in a case where you brought this AI into this position of an enrollee,
Mm.
in quotes, that's supposed to be a ghost enrollee. How do
Mm.
you think health insurers should be prepared for this kind
Mm.
of invasion or evasion?
That's an interesting way to think about it. So if I repeat what you're saying, due to the advancements in AI we have nowadays, you're saying there could be scenarios where AI is used to spoof the identity of an actual enrollee so that a fraudulent claim can be filed. That's correct, yes?
Yeah, yeah, you're correct.
Yeah. I would say it depends on the scenario, it depends on the use case and how the process is filed. So for health insurance to be specific now, a claim doesn't get filed until someone turns up to a healthcare facility. Right? So it's not a situation of you uploading a picture or uploading someone's face. There has to be a physical turn up, right? So it's AI is very digital unless we have robots that are going to mimic your face and walk into the facility, wearing a face that looks like you, then that is where we can say, okay, AI can actually represent you to file a ghost claim on your behalf in the health insurance landscape. So if we now flip the entire thing, instead of AI being the fraudulent factor here, AI can actually be the fraud detector in this case. So in a scenario where an enrollee never showed up to the hospital and a claim is filed, well, we doesn't even need to be any advanced AI, for instance. But one of the things AI can do here is facial detection, right? Because there are facial detection models that can compare the face of someone to a picture that has been registered. So how that links with this is this. To file a ghost enrollee claim, we assume the health provider rather, doesn't have the person there present, right? So let's assume we go ahead and put a measure to ensure that they must get some form of identification or digital identification from the enrollee to confirm their presence. And then these healthcare providers are able to bypass that identification. Maybe they've kept it in the past or something. AI can come in there by requiring a a live photograph to be taken of the person before a claim can be filed. So instead of just scanning the ID card or the thumbprint or whatever biometric of the person, we can require that the enrollee is standing in front of the camera and the picture is taken. But with AI, we can tell if this picture is a live image, like the person is actually there. It can detect facial movement of the facial muscles, a smile, eye movement, as compared to a static image or a pre-recorded video. So AI can actually help to minimize, to help curb ghost and release when it is used in this method. But I'll keep it there so we don't run out of time.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Flash. So I would just like to ask another question, which I'm sure some medical practitioners here, working in the insurance sector would like to know. So, like, what are some best practices that are good for collaborating, with other insurers to prevent fraud?
Yeah, good one. I would say that first there needs to be an open mindset, an openness mindset, whatever the term is. You know, we we might see them as competitors. So insurers might see themselves as competitors to some extent. But to be honest, I would say that they should see themselves as colleagues because in the grand scheme of things, you cannot have everybody on your scheme. But if you can learn from the other insurance companies and they can learn from you, then it makes everything more efficient and better for everyone in the ecosystem. So I'll say the first thing is the need for an openness mindset or an ecosystem kind of mindset where every insurer sees the other insurer as a partner, as a colleague, as an entity that they can talk with and share insights with. And that comes to the next point, being able to share insights with other insurers. So when I mean insights, talking about high level knowledge, discoveries, patterns that have been noticed, can be shared across, in form of events. Let's say the insurance companies can come together, have conferences where they all discuss latest trends they have observed in terms of fraudulent patterns from patients or providers or what have you, better ways they can improve their fraud detection processes. Um, in summary, sharing that information across each other, across themselves in form of meetings, in form of events, in form of publications. This can actually help bridge that gap to foster better collaboration. And the third thing that I would actually drive at is the fact that data, because first I talked about insights. Insights are kind of very high level, not necessarily specific. They just paint a picture. But when you talk about data, it's tangible. Data has specific points, things that you can reference, that you can compare, you can make use of, you can consume and look at. So My recommendation would be that insurers are willing to share data with each other. And when I mean sharing data, obviously it doesn't have to be sensitive business data, but think about if this were possible. Assume you had an insurance company. So Dave, let's assume you had an insurance company, and Samson, you had an insurance company, and you wanted to onboard a certain client, but you are curious to wonder what kind of history this client has had with other insurance companies. If it was possible for you to get this data from Dave's insurance company, wouldn't that like make life easier for you, right? And Dave,
Mhm.
imagine you were also in that situation, being able to get such data from Sam's insurance company. That would like, you know, change the dynamics
Yeah,
of things. So
yeah,
yeah, exactly. And a lot of this can be made possible via technology, but there needs to be that readiness to be willing to share these things. So data on providers that have the most fraudulent practices, data on individuals, clients who have the most fraudulent practices, data on those who default in paying up for their premiums and try to file claims when their premiums have expired. All that kind of data can be
hmm,
shared
yeah,
in a non-disclosing way that still is not in violation of any of their data protection laws or requirements, and to the benefit of everyone. It improves collaboration and reduces fraud across the entire ecosystem.
yeah. Okay, okay. Thank you, Dr. Flash. So, I'm sure this question will be in the mind of some of the attendees of this call of this live webinar. So, which is a question
Mhm.
I'm going to ask. So, it's just to know. Right now, you have mentioned ways in which insurers can collaborate to reduce fraud. But right now, it's important to know some of the challenges that the challenges of preventing fraud in the health insurance industry, because some of these insurers actually lack some tools, some of these things we've spoken about. So my question will go like this: what are the challenges of preventing fraud?
Challenge number one, I'll call it the need for speed. Insurers need to pay claims on time. All right? They have SLAs to meet up with. They have clients, providers who are waiting for their claims to get paid. Otherwise, the clients might be unhappy. So there's a need for speed. There's a pressure to pay out claims in time, and this itself is a challenge because when like a popular saying that one of the big tech giants has made, move fast and break things. So there are chances that when you move fast, something's going to break. And if there is a need for claims processing to happen very quickly, then it makes detecting fraud harder because mm, checks are going to become more difficult. Detailed checks are going to become more difficult because we need to move these things out really quick. So the need for speed is one of the first challenges I would say, and it's a good challenge if you ask me. It's not one of those bad challenges. So which is why I brought it to the
Yeah.
front, because we want insurers to be fast, but they also need to be aware that that need to be quick can be
Mm-hmm.
a challenge for fraud detection. And that then goes to the next thing, which is also chicken and egg of this need for speed thing, which is like the backlog of claims that have to be processed. And this happens for mostly large insurers, not small insurers. So for small insurers, maybe they have a very small volume of a few hundred claims per month coming in. Even if they are not so
Yeah.
fast, or whatever pace they are able to go, they can still tackle this without having to hire more hands, right? But when you talk about the guys who have grown to the point where they're having hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of claims on a monthly basis, if they try to go slow, there's going to be a backlog. And if they try to go fast, they can risk, having increased numbers of fraud or increased occurrences of fraud. So the size of the backlog is also a major challenge that insurers face, at least that I'm aware of. And it's a good problem too, because more claims means insurance is being utilized and that their
Yeah.
policies are
Mhm.
making impacts in the lives of people. So I
True.
am mentioning all the good
Yeah.
problems for starters.
Mm-hmm.
Then the next the next thing that happens is that sometimes to actually know what is fraudulent, you need data. So if you've never encountered something before, like you wouldn't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. You might just make a decision off the whim without having trusted insights or trusted data too. decide what to do in such a scenario. So access to data is another challenge that I would say that insurance companies have. There is no single source of truth for health insurance companies to compare all kinds of scenarios. They have to depend on internal knowledge, what they have learned, their
Yeah.
experience or
Yeah.
experience from colleagues or from wherever they can get. Right? So access to data
Yeah.
to help facilitate these decisions is a challenge. And I don't know what if to call this a good one, but it's one of those challenges that can be a very big pain for them. And the fact that
Okay.
we are now going to go down to the technology part, there's a limited resourcing budget. Now,
Yeah.
this limited
Yeah.
resourcing cuts across different scopes. For those who do manual processing of claims, there is a limit to how many people they can hire. Obviously, that is a challenge for
Yeah.
every organization, right? There's also a limit to how much, what's the right term? The level of skill that they can afford to keep on the desk full time to focus on detecting fraud. So, if
Yeah.
I paint a simple scenario for this, someone who has detected fraud, maybe Ivy League level fraud detection, who has gone to Ivy League level fraud detection programs, is going to cost more than someone who has done it at maybe a very junior level. And you can tell that the effectiveness of their fraud detection skills is not going to be the same. So being able to afford the right
Yeah.
talent that can actually
Yeah.
facilitate this
Yeah.
detection of fraud is also a big challenge that might limit them. And that
Okay,
also
Dr.
now goes
Flash.
down to the IT personnel.
Yeah.
All
Mm-hmm.
right. Yeah, I was just going to talk about the IT personnel and technology. Limits to being able to
Okay.
access the right tech is another
Yeah.
factor.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Sorry to cut you short there. I would just want
So
to ask, like, right now we've spoken about the challenges. So would you like to throw more light on some of the important things that health insurers can do to prevent fraud?
absolutely. It'll cut across different areas. It seems like I've said that a lot today. Things are cutting across
Yeah.
different areas.
Yeah.
Uh, so yes, everything is multidisciplinary. There's no silver bullet.
Mhm.
The first thing is being aware. What you don't know, you don't know.
Mhm.
If you don't know something, you don't know, right? So there needs to be an awareness, and this
Yeah.
awareness needs to be like top, bottom up across the entire organization. Everyone needs to be aware that fraud exists and all the forms of fraud that can come in. There needs to be continuous repetition. So if it's not repeated, there's no way it's going to last. So, like the saying goes, continuity is
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
how this deep and lasting impression. Repetition, yes, deep and lasting
Repetition.
impression. So
Yeah.
there needs to be
Yeah.
repeated
Mm-hmm.
awareness creation in the entire organization to all staff about fraud and how the fact that it happens. There
Yeah.
is then there needs to be investment in the right tools to facilitate fraud detection, tools to help the team get across easily without having to spend more time, like spending more time doing what a machine could have done. So in present day, we have a lot of tools that can actually detect fraud in health insurance
Yeah.
claims, which we are one of them. Shameless
Yeah.
plug. And investing in this kind of tools would make it possible for a health insurance company to reduce the amount of time spent manually looking at claims to fish out fraud from hours to like microseconds. And just imagine that difference. The fact that being able to detect fraud on one claim has been reduced from like 15 minutes to microseconds. Multiply that at scale, you find out that an insurance company can go from being able to vet thousands of claims from large numbers in just split amount of time. So technology is one very major tool, major area that
Yeah.
insurance companies need to invest in to make it possible for them to detect fraud. Aside just ensuring that there's an awareness, because you might know there's a problem, but if you don't have the right tools to solve it, you really wouldn't be able to solve it, right? And
Yeah. Yeah.
more things that need to happen is data awareness. So what I mean by that is making sure that there's a process. There's a process to fetch data. There's a process to communicate data. So if within the team someone has noticed or suspects that there's a fraudulent incident, how do we resolve it? Do I just keep it somewhere? Do I just let it slide? What do I do? So Awareness of that data and a process and a pathway to escalate and resolve such situations needs to be
Yeah.
established.
Yeah, quick
Okay.
one.
Thank you. Yeah.
Dave. Yeah, quick
All
one,
right.
Dave.
All right. Go ahead,
So,
Samson.
Dr. Flash. Yeah, Dr. Flash. You talked about what's the word now? Accessing data and communicating data. Um, can you throw more light on protecting data? Now, this is where I'm coming from. Protecting data not is one, and what will happen? Because most times, when you say protect your property, the reason many people don't protect their property is because you don't tell them that there's a consequence when you don't protect their property. So, if I don't protect, or an insurance company don't protect their customers' data, what will happen? What can happen to that data? People that lay their hands on that data, what can they do with it? What are the possibilities, and how harmful could this be to an insurance company? Now, let me quickly put in this news. Last month, if I'm still correct, Leadway Assurance had a breach in their data house, and somehow they were able to respond on time based on the news they released, and they were able to curb it. Just imagine that they were not able to curb it. What could have happened to the business and to the customer? So let's. I know you've talked about communicating the data. Uh, Tell us a bit more on protecting that data and the how too.
Good one.
Yeah.
They are. All right, great. So we should start from what happens if your data is not protected? Think about it. If you leave the door to your house open, what can happen? All sorts. You can have a ram sneak into your house and come butt you in the head while you're asleep, or you can have a goat walk into your kitchen and eat all your vegetables. You could have, a stray cat come in and launch a breeding ground in your home, right? So those are just analogies of things that can go wrong if you leave your home unprotected or leave the door to your house open. So the same thing applies to data. If an insurance company is unable to protect their data, a vast amount of things can happen. Data breaches, for instance, can result in exposure to sensitive information of their clients, from health data to financial data. And these are things that could have dire consequences. It's There will be no point going into listing all the potential consequences of a massive data breach that is not addressed in time. Right? From the business losing customers to litigation, I mean, it's part of the requirements in certain industries that you are able to protect data. So being not able to do that could expose any of such organizations to litigation to the point of losing them. And all of this can lead to loss in revenue, loss in clients, loss in trust from the entire ecosystem. Before you know it, it could lead to a business shutdown. So it's it's a it's a path that every organization should be careful to avoid treading down. And if we talk about the hows of preventing that, which is rare, why we should pay more attention to, not just talking about the problems, really. There are a whole bunch of things that can be done. And the simplest of it is being willing to invest properly. And I say this from a standpoint of knowing the fact that there's a trend in certain kind of organizations to not hire the right kind of competent staff, especially in certain departments that the management might not be able to relate with. For instance, IT. It's common knowledge that the IT segments of most organizations are ignored or neglected because for the impact is not very obvious on the bottom lines for most management or execs within the organization. So they're like, yeah, IT. What budget do we need to? What's going down there? The guys that manage our computers, what are they doing, right? Then you find that in lots of these organizations, you have just regular guys just doing the regular things, basic guys who don't necessarily know how to twat or twat off cyber attacks or are not security conscious, guys who can just do the basic things. And when catastrophes occur, you wouldn't be surprised. But these are things that these organizations need to be willing to do. They need to be willing to invest in having the right kind of personnel who are qualified and who have the skill and certifications to actually handle their data protection. Then they need to invest in the right tools. So there is a pattern of many of these organizations preferring to host things internally, some because of regulation, some because they don't know other ways to do it, some because that is the de facto that they were told by their colleagues and all. But you find that if you cannot invest on the right personnel to manage your systems, it is better to then invest on the best of tools because these tools have been built with, you know, military grade protection to ensure that whoever is managing it doesn't necessarily need to know too much, but the tool itself brings all the protection that you need. So think about insurers that now fall default on both ends of this. They don't invest in the right personnel and they don't invest in the best tools. Like you're just dancing in risky waters. So insurance companies need to have the best IT personnel. And even if you don't need to break the bank on that, you can't really afford to break the bank. Get the best tools. And tools like this, our recommendation would always be to go for those who have been battle trusted. Cloud platforms like AWS, Microsoft Azure, etc., Google Cloud. These guys have been doing this for a long time and they built solutions that can help ensure that your infrastructure is protected and breaches would be extremely difficult for an external attacker unless you make it possible by yourself. So personnel and tools would be the way to summarize it. I wouldn't want to get into the technical boring details because that's for the IT personnel to come talk about.
Okay. So thank you, Dr. Flash. You have actually covered a lot in terms of the strategies and giving us a lot of insights. So it's actually not a disappointing one. Personally, for me, more enlightened subject. So I think just to go with the final question, the final questions. So I would just like to know, so how can this health insurers, work with patients, right, to prevent fraud? And also, you can throw more light on because talking about fraud detection, Curacel, it's something we are more focused on. So maybe for the viewers, you might just want to let them know, okay, so if they eventually decide to use Curacel, what it is like, and also, the payment method.
Great. So, like we said earlier, data helps to improve fraud detection. And involving the patients for health insurers is one way to get extra data that can facilitate the entire process. So because the patient is at the tail end to some extent, he knows what was done for him, what was done to him or her, as the case is a good source of data. And we already find that there's a practice in some health insurers manually contacting their patients to verify certain things in cases where there are doubts, but this doesn't really work at scale, right? So technology infused into the entire process, making it possible for your patients to give you automated feedback whenever a claim is filed on the behalf using simple tools. Let's not even say advanced tools, simple tools like giving them a mobile app or sending them emails that they can respond to with a click of a button or sending them messages on WhatsApp, automated messages, right? Everything I'm
Yeah.
talking about is automated because for you to work at scale, it needs to be automated. So all of these channels, multi-channel verifications with your patients of everything that was filed in the claim is actually one way you can work with your patients to minimize fraud. And it will help you get better results in curbing fraudulent claims. And on Curacel, these are things that are actually already available, just to paint a picture. When a claim is filed on Curacel, you can send automated notifications to your enrollees via email, via SMS, via WhatsApp, on a mobile app, which can be white labeled for you, and they can respond, verifying or disputing whatever is on that claim. And this is a very smooth process, which will then reflect on your own dashboard, and you can use that information to determine what to do about the claim or not. And that gives you more data and more insight, and it has already involved your enrollee. And other things that already happen on our platform. We use AI. We are very big on AI. So, for instance, I did mention a scenario where someone who was treated for malaria is given drugs for hypertension or diabetes and all that. We have AI models that can detect stuff like that. So if you process your claims through Curacel, we make it possible to automatically detect such. So instead of your medical staff spending their time going through every claim to pick out things like this, the platform does it for you automatically. And all your team has to do is, oh wow, okay, this is good or this is not good, right? It's even to the point where you can automatically vet a large proportion of your claims. So let me paint a picture. Let's assume you have like 5,000 claims. And out of these 5,000 claims, instead of having one person or having people vet them one by one to check each claim for all these details every single time, passing those claims through Curacel, you can have a scenario where out of those 5,000, maybe 4,500 or 4,000 or 3,500 pass through Curacel, automatically Curacel tells you these claims are good to go. Now, if Curacel tells you these claims are good to go, you can rest assured that they are good to go because we are very strict with the things we approve. Now, what Curacel would have done for you is to save you the time that your medical staff would have spent vetting those 3,500 claims. They can now spend it on just the remaining 1,500 claims that we think, you should double check. So now imagine the amount of time they would have spent on 5,000 being spent on 1,005. Now this cuts down the problem I talked about need for speed earlier because they're no longer in a hurry. Now they can pay more attention to these ones that Curacel has said you need to double check. Double by the fact that when Curacel says you need to double check these claims, we already give you explanations and reasons behind why we said you should double check. So we're not just saying, okay, double check this claim. No, we're going to give you a detailed explanation for each item on the claim and why we think that item should not be approved or should be adjusted. So this is before, I don't want to like turn this into a marketing thing, but those are just a glimpse of the tip of the iceberg of the things that health insurers can benefit from using Curacel to process their claims.
Wow, that's some good stuff there.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Flo. Very insightful. Yeah.
Great.
Okay. And thank you also, Dr. Flash, for taking our time to really break down this information, regarding fraud detection and also how important it is for insurance companies. So please, those of you watching this webinar, please do not hesitate to reach out to Dr. Flash for more information, for questions, and regarding Curacel, you can always visit our sites if you really want to see a demo on a live presentation of the system. And so I believe without further ado, I do believe we have come to the end of today's webinar. So I don't know, Samson, would you like to drop one or two before we end it here?
Yeah. Thank you. Nice one. It's been a 30 minutes plus session of like insightful session already. Thank you so much, Dave, for anchoring this
Thank you.
the session, and thank you so much, Flash, for joining us. And thank you to everyone that currently watching this right now. You are the real MVP. Amazingly, as you're watching this, if you go down the comments, you will get a link to download a white paper that talks about the health insurance fraud and what you can start doing as a health insurance. Like David mentioned earlier, if you want to see if you would like to see how the Curacel products work and how its AI tool can help you to mitigate fraudulent activities in your business, in your system, and also saves you enough time. Reports over the years have shown that our clients currently, they've saved about, the last time we checked, about 70% of operating time. Don't you want to do that? Would you not like that to happen for your business? Thank you so much. When you watch, leave us a comment, leave us a like, follow us on our pages so that you get more of these. We'll be coming out with more in a few weeks of this kind of show. So bye for now. I'm Samson Omamuzo, and thank you, Flash and Dave, for a wonderful session. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Samson. Thank you, Flash.